Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today it's time to talk about a new devblog for an upcoming vehicle for the next major update for War Thunder. This is the G6 Rhino. Now this is a vehicle I've personally been looking forward to for a long time, especially after the band cannon and stuff like the 2S3M was added. This is a South African SPG. It's going to be coming to the British tree, just like all of the other South African vehicles, and going to be at rank 4, so they're definitely not over tiering it, which is nice to see, since a lot of SPGs I feel like have started off their career in War Thunder quite over tiered. The vehicle itself sports a lot of very interesting features on it, and also at the same time should have access to some pretty good mobility, which will put it apart compared to a lot of the other SPGs around the area. Let's get into the history of the G6 Rhino. This extract is taken from Tank Encyclopedia. During the 1960s, the South African Defence Force still employed World War II artillery, such as the 88mm quick-firing gun, which was the 20-pounder, which was designated the G1. 140mm howitzers designated the G2, and Canadian M2 155mm towed howitzers designated G3, and also the Sexton self-propelled artillery, to name a few. Needless to say, the SADF needed to upgrade its artillery inventory, and artillery gunners set the requirements to modernize their artillery inventory in 1968, which was formalized during 1973. Development of the G545 155mm Advanced Long-Range Field Artillery System, known as the Leopard, began in 1976 under the project name Sherbet 3, led by the Space Research Corporation under the famous Dr. Gerald Bull. The responsibility for the design and development of the G6 carrier and turret was allocated to Sandock Austral and Irmatech. The integration of the G545 155mm Advanced Long-Range Field Artillery Gun Control System into a turret was allocated to ESD. Littleton Engineering Works produced the turret, which was designed by Ematech, and Natchem was responsible for ammunition subsystems. The G6 Rhino is armed with the G545 gun and designated as the G645, with a G652 version is currently undergoing advanced development by Denel Land Systems. The development of the G645 self-propelled gun howitzer began in earnest during 1979 at Arms Corps under Project Zenula. The first advanced prototype was completed in October of 1981, and by 1987, 4 G645 vehicles were built. They were pushed into service in the same year during the Angolan Border War from 1968 to 1989, and one G645 suffered an engine failure due to a broken connecting rod on one of the pistons. It was subsequently towed to Mavinga while a new replacement engine was flown in. 3 days later, after the new engine was installed, the vehicle set to join the other 3 G645s already deployed in the bush. All 4 vehicles returned to South Africa on their own power near mid-December of 1987. Full-scale production began in 1988 and lasted until 1994. A modernization program, codenamed Vazbyte, which means hang in there, was implemented in 1993 to ensure all G645s had the same equipment and characteristics. Variants of the G645 are operated by Oman, in the form of 24 of them, the United Arab Emirates at 78 as well. Denel Land Systems have continued to upgrade the G6 platform and unveiled the G652 in 2003, showing key improved features such as mobility, speed, range, accuracy, ease of operation, rate of fire, full protection against counter-battery fire, and adaptability. 2 variants of the G652 were produced, one with a standard 23 chamber, and then the other one with a larger 25. So maybe we could see some other variants as well of the good old G6 Rhino. So when it comes to the G6 Rhino, I think it's fair to chat about the vehicle itself in comparison to other ones that we've seen added to the game recently. Howitzers of the modern era are something that I never really would fit too well in War Thunder. I still don't think they fit very well, if I'm honest with you, but at the same time I have had some quite nice experiences in them, which have been, pretty fun. The band cannon being one where if you're in the correct position, you can easily get a 2 to 3 to 4 kills in a very quick period because of the reload. And also the reload animation on it was really nice. And because it wasn't a stupidly high tier vehicle, the grind on it wasn't actually too bad. And with the G6 Rhino being rank 4 and probably having the same ideas behind it, then it won't be as bad either because of the research costs. The 2S3M was another one that was added, which I had a lot worse time in until I got one of the specific rounds on it, which wasn't as fun as, some of the other machines. And I'm sure in the future, when we get more of these howitzer/SPG ideas, we're going to see more of them around the place. Now, when it comes to G6 Rhino, it does have a ton of really cool factors about it. This vehicle should be pretty mobile in general. It has the Magirus-Deutz diesel engine, which has 477 horsepower on it. It's also got an off-road speed of 30 kilometers an hour and an on-road speed of 80 kilometers an hour. And also at the same time using the 155mm. Now, there are two versions of the Rhino. There's one with a L45 gun and one with an L52 gun. I'm pretty sure we're getting the L45 one, but this also means that we could easily get another one of these behemoths again at a higher tier. And at the same time, it does have a coaxial Browning, or in a form of a 7.62 or a 12.7. It can technically also have a pencil mount on it, but when we look at it, when it comes to the Devblog, it doesn't seem to have one of them, which kind of sucks. It would be nice if that existed. There is a bunch of interesting rounds on it as well. So this thing can fire all the standard NATO 155mm ammunition. It also says the heavy high explosive rounds, regular and remote fuse, ensure a good effect on target, even if tankers miss critical components. So what you'll be relying on in this thing, just like you rely on in stuff like the band cannon and other vehicles, is overpressuring your target. So shooting for weak areas and going from there. The muzzle velocity isn't too bad on the shells themselves. That is definitely something which is quite nice. And it does have a very, very sophisticated fire control system, but it's designed for artillery targeting. So obviously in game, you're not really going to be able to use that. The G6 was one of those vehicles which had an insanely high fire range. So HE with VLAB, for example, on the G645 was able to fire 52.5 kilometers. Whereas the G652ER on the fire range with the VLAP was able to fire 73 kilometers. Obviously in game, you're not going to be doing that too much when it comes to the vehicle. It does have 5 degrees of gun depression and also has a maximum 40 degrees of either left and right on the horizontal. So that's going to be a bit annoying, very similar to the LC BIS that we've found. But the fact that it does have gun depression is nice. It does mean that you can get the gun on target. I feel like if this thing could go 360 though, it would be a lot nicer to play, because you could hide the massive chassis behind a hill and then be able just to kind of poke out the gun. One of the problems that this thing's going to have is you have to expose a lot of the vehicle in order to be able to get a shot off, and this thing does not have any armor at all. We're talking about stuff that can get 50 cal to death at most from close range. So because of that fact, if you don't hit your first shot, then you're going to have a pretty tough time for the vehicle itself. It's going to be one of those which it can technically fire with the multi-baffle system and a new rammer. This increased its fire rate to 6 rounds per minute, but this is on the G652. So the G645 with this 155mm gun could fire at 3 rounds a minute, so 20-second reload. So that could be super rough on the vehicle if that comes in. So the reloads can either be 10 seconds or 20 seconds, depending on what they go for. And overall, that still makes it, you know, a little bit rough. So that's going to be the limiting factor for this vehicle. The fact that you have to expose a lot of the vehicle, and then also the long reload time compared to some of the other howitzers in the game. But to be honest with you, I'm happy to see this one. I know a lot of people are interested in the American howitzers, you know, they're interested in some other nations' howitzers, but for me, when it comes to uniqueness and when it comes to actual interesting vehicles and their playstyle, the G6 Rhino is right up there when it comes to howitzers itself. I just really hope they're not looking to add some kind of indirect fire mechanic to the game. I really think that would be a bad idea. You know, we've seen how it's gone in World of Tanks and also other games. It's one of the more hated mechanics, I would guess to say, when it comes to those. So hopefully it doesn't make it to this game as well. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Merciless Reaper, Jerry Provolt, Mega Dino King, Professor X1718, Orange Tail, Sakoshi Tiger, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, Moxie, B. Young, and Derek R., Barine, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.